Hello everyone, welcome back to the SevereMMA YouTube channel. Today we have a conversation with UFC fighter Lerone Murphy. We talk a little bit about the fight fallout between Nathaniel Wood and himself for UFC London. We talk about cross-training. We talk about himself as a deep philosophical thinker and the origins of that. And we talk about a whole host more. Very gracious of Lerone to give me his time, and I really enjoyed the interview. I hope you do too. If you like the interview, please feel free to press like and subscribe at the bottom. And then we can get way more of these types of interviews to you. Enjoy, and thanks very much. About 8 weeks ago, you posted on Instagram a picture of yourself in the cage in the UFC, and you mentioned that there were 3 things that you learned from 2022. I'm just going to quote one of them, and I'd like to explore that a little bit with you. The quote is, "The mind will set limits out of fear, aim higher." What does that exactly mean to you?
Just means like basically like when you're about to get out of your comfort zone and like level up, your mind would always tell you like give you like the dangers almost. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the just like try put you off any way they can kind of things. Like I'll give you an example now. You get offered a fight in the top 15. Your mind will say, "Oh, you're not ready. You're not this. You're not that." Do you get what I'm saying? To try to catch, almost to keep you safe. But it's when you take that step and you believe in yourself when you excel in life.
So how do you know when decisions are something that you should take because your mind is setting limitations for you? And and you just said to keep you safe, right? So how do you know when the right time to keep yourself safe is, and when the right time is to, as you say, believe in yourself and push yourself forward?
I believe that's why you're supposed to have a good team around you as well, because us as fighters, we've got big egos in it. We're always going to believe we can beat anyone or whatnot. Or sometimes you might even not believe you can beat this person, but your coaches and team do. They believe it's a good matchup for you or whatever. So I feel like it's a team effort. The more brains and the more inputs you have, the better.
So we'll get to the elephant in the room, and that's obviously Nathaniel Wood and the fight fallout and UFC London and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk more sort of about you as a human, you as a person.
Yeah.
You come across as a thinking man, and I mean that from the way that you fight. I mean that from the way that you present yourself on social media and the way that you present yourself in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that thinking man come from? Where does that philosophical side of you come from?
I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know myself, to be honest. I just think I've always been a maybe a deep thinker and whatnot. Yeah, I think I was just born that way, innit?
Yeah, because like if you look at your life and your upbringing and some of the trials and tribulations that you've been through,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily conducive to what the stereotypes would label a thinking man as, right? But then, as
Mm.
I say, as you look at the way that you fight, you look at the way that you present yourself on social media or in interviews, it seems that that's the opposite. Like, do you remember a time when it sort of became apparent that you thought differently to other people? Have you always been confident to present yourself in the way that you do?
Yeah. I guess it's like you said, life, the tribulations through like I've gone through and through life that I've become this way. But I've always been that way. So I can't really say that, to be honest. I've always been that way. I've always been a big, like a good thinker and whatnot.
So let's talk a little bit about Nathaniel Wood. Obviously, a an exciting matchup for UFC London. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to talk. I mean, obviously, as it stands right now, the fight is off with Nathaniel. Obviously, he got injured. Whatever. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But
Mm.
I wanted to ask specifically. You are two Englishmen. You are two fighters fighting out of the UK. Come up on the UK scene, and in my opinion, two prospects in that division. How do you feel about two prospects, specifically from the same or representing the same country, fighting each other sort of this early in your career?
I believe it's got its pros and cons in it. It's like if you look at the UK MMA scene, the best don't really fight the best. Do you get what I'm saying? Everyone's always wondering, oh, what would happen if this person fought that person or whatnot. So it's like I thought it's a fight that boosted the card. Obviously, a lot of people didn't want to see us fight each other, but it was a big fight. We're both talented guys. Do you get what I'm saying? It was in for a big fight. Um, in terms of UK fighting UK, it's like obviously there's so many other fighters out there that we could have fought, but it is what it is, man. It's a single man sport. Do you get what I'm saying? Like we're all aiming for that title. So whoever you cross on the way up, it don't matter what nationality you are. It is what it is, isn't it?
Because that's kind of that point that you just made there is kind of where I sit. Is I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask some questions about cross training soon. Obviously, you went out to Thailand and you've been and trained with Dom Cruz and a variety of other places. And I feel like the UK scene is sort of thriving at the moment in its amateur roots, right? There are a ton of amateurs coming through that are really, really high level in
Yeah,
comparison to the amateurs of say 5-10 years ago. And I kind of feel as though in some way the UK can do well by banding its fighters together, amateur or
mm,
professional. Now I understand that amateur you have to fight UK guys, yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. But there seems to me as though if there was a little more unity within the pro ranks, that could excel drastically. You just mentioned that you and Nathaniel are obviously both very skilled fighters,
Mhm.
and when you're in that division, obviously, even in the regionals, when they were in Cage Warriors, the idea was like, oh, will Nathaniel ever fight Jack Shaw? And will that
Yeah,
fight ever
yeah,
happen? And all
yeah.
of these sorts of things. But I totally understand in the same vein that you've got to get to the title, right? Like that's your aim, that's your goal.
Mm, mm.
What do you think about the idea of sort of pro fighters, especially in the UK, being a little more unified to try and bring the level up in the UK to maybe more of where the level is in other countries?
It just, yeah, I get what you're saying fully, and that's a good point you've made. And people do cross train. I trained with Jordan Vucenic the other day, sparred with him, who's ex Cage Warriors champion. He'll get that belt back soon at some point. Um, I do cross train, but I just think there's also a lot of rats in this game, man. It's also a lot. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like you end up training with some guy, you end up fighting his friend. He's telling this guy about this. It's hard. So sometimes I believe in cross training, sometimes I don't, and I just believe you should have just a tight team, and then you go like places like Thailand or wherever, and you can go mix it up there. You can go level up there. You can go and get spar different bodies there. Do you get what I'm saying? But it's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to trust people in this game.
Yeah, I guess that is a very interesting point that I've not really thought about. Is like, I guess I look at it slightly through rose tinted glasses of like, oh, how can we make the UK scene better?
Mm,
And obviously,
mm,
the answer to that is there's an optimistic view of we'll get the fighters training together, and obviously, if they have to compete, they have to compete. It is what it is.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you're right that there are teams here that are like yourself. You have to solely look out for yourself and your own fighters, and so
yeah,
when that cross training comes in, there could be some nefarious actions. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Um, there's been some social media back and forth. Right now, personally, I'm not somebody that tries to get too involved in that.
yeah,
I think, like you said, none of it really matters until the cage doors closed, and then we're both in there, and we'll see what happens, right?
yeah.
But can you just talk a little on the fight's obviously been cancelled with Nathaniel. You've had a lot of fight cancellations in your pro and amateur career, almost as many cancellations as you've had fights, which is insane to me.
Wow, that is crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you've had 10 cancellations
Wow.
in 10
Well,
recorded cancellations, that is.
yeah, three. I think three was COVID. Three or four was COVID and visa issues, and then the rest. I remember early pro days. It was like I get a new opponent on the day, all that kind of stuff. But I think I've only been injured once or twice. Well, twice.
And I
Yeah,
wanted to ask, with this specifically, or with cancellations sort of specifically, is there a point where is there like a grieving process for that? Because especially for this kind of fight, right? It's at home, it's
yeah,
in a massive show. undercard of a huge pay-per-view fight, and it
Well, I've still got my heart set on fighting, and I'm supposedly getting a matchup in the next few days. So I'm not too fussed. I just want to fight. Do you get what I'm saying? Obviously, I know it would have been a big fight, and I'm pissed. It's not Wood, especially after the back and forth we've been having over the last few days. But we're cool, man. It's nothing deep, nothing personal like that. It's just like he thinks he'll beat me, and I think I'll beat him in it. So it's just competitive in it.
Do you have any names that you can speak on for the opponent that could be coming?
I don't have a clue. I'm in the dark. I don't know. I'm just waiting. I just want to get a matchup in it. I just need to get a fight. I've not fought in what 14 months or something like that. So I just want to get out there, man, against whoever.
Fair. I mean, look, that's what's got you to this point so far. On Nathaniel Wood and the back and forth, like you've sort of, and it seems like you just said, it seems like obviously Nathaniel is a confident fighter and believes in his skill set and believes that you know he's going to go in there as he should believe. Frankly, if he was going into a fight believing that he couldn't beat his opponent, that's not the mindset to go in with, right? And obviously you believe the same thing, that you're going to go in there and you're going to win that fight. How do you perceive and how do you deal with those sorts of interactions online? Is it something that you enjoy? Is it something you prefer to stay away from?
Do you know what? To be honest, like this isn't me really. You've not seen this before from me, but I just felt like I felt like he's downplaying my skills, and maybe that's just my ego, but I felt like I just couldn't figure out in my head how does he think how's he so confident that he'll beat me? He's not beat anybody at my caliber before. He's been stopped by smaller guys. Like I've seen him hurt by a lot of smaller guys than me. A lot of people that have not got the power I've got. I was just confused to think how he's so confident. I would, if I was him, I'd be going into this fight saying, "Yo, it's a big fight. It's a big step up in competition because it is. Because he's beat Rosa and Charles Jourdain. Jourdain didn't look himself in that fight. That he thinks he can beat me. Like I'm confused, mate. I'm lost for words.
And that's why I asked, because following your career over the last little while, you're not a man that talks a lot. Not specifically to fighters. There's a very few back and forth. Like, and you mentioned that he sort of poked your ego a little. Like, what was the decision making there? To be like, you know what, fuck this guy. I'm gonna have to go for him now. Like, I'm gonna have to go for him. What's that?
You know what? He's just posting little things, and I think he posted an interview, and he said something about after beating Lerone or after smoking Lerone, I would have been top 15 or March 18. I would have been. How are you so confident? Like it wasn't gonna go that way. It was not gonna go that way. I'm telling you. I honestly think that he needed a Hail Mary in that fight to win that fight. Like I can't see where he thinks he'll beat me.
So there is a level of delusion that is absolutely necessary for a fighter to have, right?
Of course.
Because otherwise you're never going to get into
I respect that from him as well. He's got heart. You watch any of his fights, he's got heart. If he believes he can beat anybody, and that's what I like about him. I've been watching Nathaniel since Cage Warriors. Do you get what I'm saying? I've watched a lot of tape on him, and not even with the mindset of I'm going to fight this guy. I never thought I'd fight him, but I'm a fan of his style, man. He brings it every time. But realistically, how does he beat me? Because any fighter that's ever pressured me the way he pressures people gets KO'd, bro. Simple. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's a no-brainer.
Does the back and forth change your opinion of him slightly? Because essentially you've just said that you watched him as a fan of the sport, as a fan of his style, as a fan of his fighting, and to have had a contract with his name on it, and now the back and forth. Does it change your opinion of him slightly, or do you even think about your opinion of him?
Not at all, man. Not at all. It is what it is, isn't it? We would have fought that day, and it would have been that's it, innit? But it's obviously I'm gonna be watching him. I'm gonna be looking at him differently now because we could have fought in it, or we might still fight. I think that fight could still happen. So I'm gonna look at him like like an opponent more than that. But I'd always still be rooting for him when he's not fighting me.
Fair. I want to just jump back to cross training, then we'll touch a little bit on the regional scene, and then obviously I'll let you go. I know you have time constraints today. So the cross training aspect, like
Yeah,
Thailand seems to me at the moment to be an absolute hotbed for MMA. You've got
yeah,
a ton of the Eastern European fighters, a ton of the Dagestani fighters. You have the fighters from New Zealand, fighters from Australia going there. Obviously, the likes of Brendan Loughnane. You've got Darren Till going out there, yourself going out there. As a concept, could you
mm.
speak a little bit about why you enjoy cross training? Not necessarily in Thailand, but why you enjoy cross training as a concept.
For me, it's more so getting different looks. And I enjoy the weather. It's easy to cut weight out there. Like it's paradise. It's literally paradise. Like here, you go gym, you're going home, you're in the cold, whatnot. It's not. It's harder. Fight camps are harder here. Whereas there, you're going training and then you're going back to the beach. Do you know what I'm saying? You're recovering on the beach. You're getting smoothies, cheap. It's just fighters' paradise, really. And that's why a lot of fighters actually go there. But in terms of the level, I'm training with guys that no one even knows, and they're just as good as me. Do you get what I'm saying? These super level of bodies on the mat. But what I would say is I wouldn't go there in camp. I don't know if I'd go there in camp or so close to a fight again, because when I was training, I was half training with people. I'm like giving 50% because I don't want to get injured, and that might just because I've had such a long layoff and I just want to make the fight. I don't know, but I just felt like I wasn't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's good though. It's amazing, but I feel like maybe first 4 weeks of your camp, it's perfect, or out of camp.
Is there a fear there, like you just mentioned, and I felt sort of your mood change when you talked about you put 50% in when you're out there, some days because you just want to make that fight. And you
Mm,
talked, obviously, you've been out for 14 months. A fighter out for 14 months is a fighter not getting paid. It's a fighter that's struggling to stay in that divisional cycle. 14 months is a long time. Like,
mm.
is there a fear there that the fight doesn't happen or that you don't get to fights? Like you mentioned that you need to fight, you need an opponent. Like, talk a little bit on that.
Do you know what? I'm quite confident that I'll get an opponent for this fight. But yeah, in terms of the training and stuff, yeah, it's always in the back of my mind that to stay healthy and not get injured and make the fight, man. Like you can't keep doing full camps and not fighting. Do you know what I'm saying? And how many last year I've done 2 full camps. Cut the restriction. No, not last year. Sorry, the year before. The restriction to the COVID restrictions that got the UK show cancelled. I've done a full camp for that. Didn't get paid. Then I, as the fight got moved to America in September, done a full camp for that. Didn't get paid because I didn't get my visa. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, and them two things wasn't my fault because the UFC moved the show from the UK to America on 2 weeks' notice. Like, how am I supposed to get my visa? Um, and then so yeah, I can't keep having fight cancellations, man. I need to fight.
Yeah, and like we don't have to peel the curtain back too much, but how do you cope with that as just as a human, right? Like people that work a 9 to 5, they go to work every day and they get paid at the end of the month, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a fighter, your paychecks come sometimes twice a year.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I'm good with money in it, so I'm okay. But and I've been paid. I've been paid in my fights. I've won all my UFC fights. I've had bonuses and like I use my money well. So I'll get by. But it's just like me. The way I see life at the minute is like it is what it is, isn't it? As long as I got a roof over my head, I got food to eat, whatever, whatever. I know all the good stuff's coming in it, so I just got to keep focused. And as long as I get to a fight and a fight, and I get active, then all the good stuff will come to me.
All right, well, I'll ask one more question, and that's about the regional MMA. So,
Yeah.
in your amateur career and early pro, you fought everywhere, right? It wasn't a linear route of, okay, we'll have a couple of fights on a pro regional MMA circuit, then we'll go to Cage Warriors, then we'll win the belt, and then we'll go to the UFC, right? It was we're fighting all over the regional promotional scene.
Yeah.
What were the pros and cons of fighting all over the regional scene in your early pro days?
Well, I will say the reason I did it like that is because one, I come up on FCC. Like I had a few amateur fights there, and obviously I was gonna do a few fights there. But the other thing was did try to get onto Cage Warriors. I couldn't get onto Cage Warriors because there was some sort of politics between the coach and the promotion. So that's why I didn't go that route. And then I was gonna sign to Bellator, and then I thought, let me hold it out because the dream was the UFC in it. So I didn't sign that contract. But do you know what? I just couldn't get fights. You know, I couldn't really get fights. Once I got to like 2 and 3, 3-0, it was hard to get decent fights, especially with guys with winning records. No one wants to fight.
And on the back of that, I've spoken to a lot of amateurs recently, and I just wondered if there was any advice that you would have for some of those amateurs about whether to work towards a Cage Warriors route, whether to work towards a route that was similar to yours, if their goal was similar to yours and the goal was the UFC. What advice would you give young amateur fighters?
I don't think you don't have to sign with Cage Warriors or anything like that. You can as long as you're beating guys with winning records, it's sweet. But obviously you got to build. I'd advise amateurs, something I didn't do, is build your social media. That's all it's about nowadays. It's 2023. The fight game's changed. Build your social media and beat guys with winning records. That's all you need to do.
Perfect. Well, look, I know we're on a time constraint, so we'll leave it there. Please feel free to shout out any sponsors, any social media that you want to, as you've obviously just mentioned social media. The floor is yours.
At Lerone145 Instagram, Twitter Lerone Murphy. Get on me.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope it all goes well in March.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.